Welcome to the Always for the New Age podcast, where we weave the threads of traditional living into the tapestry of modern day life. I'm your host, Hannah, and I'm a naturopath, herbalist, and passionate plant lover here to discuss topics such as daily ritual, intentional living, witchcraft, herbal astrology, plus sharing interviews with inspiring guests, and so much more. Thank you for being here, and I hope you enjoy this week's episode. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a podcast review if you enjoy my content. I wish to honour and express my deepest gratitude to the traditional custodians of the unceded land on which I live and record, the Wanjerabara people. I want to acknowledge their elders, past, present and emerging, and their continued connection to the land, sea and community. This always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Hi, hello everybody, this is Hannah Forrest, and finally I am so elated to welcome you back to the Always with the New Age podcast. It has been a minute since our last episode and a lot went down in 2023, so I'm here to talk about all of those things with you, share about where we're going in 2024, and also talk to you a little bit about catnip, which is flowering in my garden right now. So first, I'd like to introduce myself to people who are new and maybe people who haven't seen my face before. So my name is Hannah Forrest, as I've just said. I am a qualified naturopath, a folk herbalist, and I also am a writer. I am a mother maker. I have a business called Grown Botanicals where I handcraft beautiful tonic herbal goodies like cacao blends and infused oils and other beautiful herbal products. I'm also involved with a beautiful community herbalism initiative called Rad Herb Australia, where I contribute to zines that are sent out every season, and that's something that you could join in with as well if you're interested, and I will share more on that in this episode too. So welcome back, and let's jump right in. So the year that was, 2023, I wanted to catch you all up because it was a wild ride for me, and I had a really hard time keeping up with everything last year. So you may have seen that we started out the year as a team. So this podcast was originally myself and Christy Newdick, who is the owner of Meadowsweet Farmhouse. And not too far into the year, Christy decided that the podcast no longer felt aligned for her. And so we had to decide what to do with it. It was originally her podcast, and then I joined in as part of a team. And so in the end, I decided to stay on and run it myself. This obviously changed the schedules of uploading and was just a lot more work for me to take on myself. And this is all coming off the back of a really intense Woodford Folk Festival experience that I had over the Christmas New Year period at the end of 2022. So that's happening. And then I find out I'm pregnant, which wasn't a surprise, but was a surprise because it happened really, really quickly. And I really didn't think I was pregnant. I was convinced I was not. And lo and behold, I was. So I found that out, it must have been late January, very, very early Feb, maybe very early February. And that threw me for a loop. And so that was great. It was super exciting. And we obviously kept it under wraps. I actually kept it under wraps for quite a while, but that's because of what happened next. So I found out I was pregnant. Then in March, the beginning of March, I was 8 weeks pregnant and I got my finger in a blender. I was making infused oils and I was trying to get a herb. It was mugwort. For anyone who knows the herbs, it was fluffy. I was trying to get it out from under this crappy blender blade. The blender was just not good quality, but I just needed it for making infused oils. So I was like, this will be perfect. It was not perfect. And there was a secret ice crush button under the turn on wheel of the blender. And so it wasn't actually on at the time. I wasn't sticking my hand in a running blender. But the pulse button, like the ice crush button, turns the blender on. And I ice crushed my finger. And so that was really interesting. I ended up with an emergency hospital stay and had to have emergency surgery. So after 3 or 4 days of fasting, water and food, 8 weeks pregnant, and nobody knew I was pregnant at that time except for my husband and the doctors, which they kept forgetting. It was very interesting. It was interesting as somebody who is a alternative complementary medicine practitioner to go into a setting like that and actually experience it firsthand, because I don't have a lot to do with doctors in the Western medical system. So it actually was quite enlightening for me. And I did get a lot of positives out of it, just experience-wise. So that was really interesting. I had emergency surgery, but because I was pregnant, I had to do it fully awake with just a nerve block in my finger. And just to, if I haven't said it already, I'm going into my Saturn return in 2023, right? So I was 28, which is about when your Saturn return starts, and it finishes around between 30, 31, maybe 32, but generally 30, 31. So it's a couple years of just very transformational experiences. I would love to talk on Saturn returns at some point, so we can definitely do that as well, for those of you who don't know what it is. But it basically, to summarize, is when the Saturn comes around to the exact space that it was in when you were born. So it's fully done a full cycle, and it has returned to where it was when you were born in your birth chart. And a lot of stuff goes on. So I hurt my finger pretty badly. This really threw me. This threw off my work in all aspects, and I was really worried because obviously I was pregnant and I didn't know if this was going to affect the baby. I had to have IV antibiotics for like 3 days while I was in the hospital to prevent infection, and the things I could tell you about my stay there. But anywho, basically this all went on, and then my mic stopped working for the podcast. And this is just a small thing. A lot of other stuff happened through the year. Car issues, house issues, power issues, you know, all these kinds of things. But the mic stopped working while I was trying to record an actual episode. And then what happened after that is my entire laptop ended up dying. And I didn't have the funds to replace it at that point. So I now have a completely new laptop, which is very exciting. And it's much nicer quality. But that was a barrier. And then I ended up getting another job working at Herb Cottage. If anybody knows Mudbrick Herb Cottage, they're absolutely amazing. And so I was working there, which was such a cool experience. And I love the team there and the family there. They're just beautiful people. And I was still working at Meadowsweet Farmhouse at that time. It was very hectic. I didn't have a lot of time to myself. I was super busy, and I was also still building up my Grown Botanicals business. So if you've never shopped Grown Botanicals, check it out online. But we have released new products, and it was a big year of growth for that business too. A lot of work and love went into redoing the website and releasing new products and really getting on top of our social media, changing all of our aesthetic and our branding. It was amazing, and I have the best customers. Honestly, you guys are so fantastic. I know a lot of you listen to this podcast as well, and I'm so eternally grateful. I know I write it and I say it all the time, but I am, because I literally wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if I didn't have you and your support. So thank you for that. So all of this is happening. I'm preparing for a baby and I'm preparing for a home birth. And so in October, I'm not really a huge believer in due dates. I believe I went somewhere in the realm of 42 to 43 weeks pregnant, which is quite a lot. We thought he would be early, and he absolutely wasn't. In the end, we did do a bit of acupuncture recommended by our midwife, and that did bring him on that night. So if I could go back and do it again, I wouldn't do that acupuncture, because I do think it contributed to a really super long labor. And if you wanted me to share a bit about my birth experience, I probably could do that. To be honest, my memory of it is not amazing. It was 52 hours, if I didn't say that, 52 hours of labor from start to finish. And I did end up having our beautiful son, Phineas, at home. And it was a fascinating experience. I learned a lot, and we have our beautiful baby boy, and that is the main thing. But we had our baby on October 23rd. Then we were straight into the end of the year Christmas madness. And because he had come so late, my partner's leave had been mostly used up at that point. So I was honestly solo mumming it quite a bit at the very beginning there. So then at the end of the year, we went away for a family Christmas. And we lost our family pet on Christmas Eve, my childhood dog, Max. Christmas Eve, we had to have him put to sleep. It was a long time coming, but I really honestly thought he would make it through Christmas and he just didn't. So that was heartbreaking, but we had a baby, my beautiful girl Withania, to kind of keep our spirits high and, enjoy our Christmas. And then Christmas happened. So if you looked on my social media at all or the news, you would have seen that there was a tornado on the mountain that I live on. A tornado. So 2023 decided to go out with a bang. And that really was super intense. That happened on Christmas Day while we were at the Sunshine Coast for a holiday. And I hadn't been on a holiday in longer than 2 years. Like, I hadn't been away in that long. And the universe just really wasn't providing that gentle, relaxing experience that I was hoping for. We also discovered that my baby is sensitive to me eating gluten during that trip, so that was really interesting. And then my husband and my dad spent my birthday, the 26th of December, rescuing my cat from my house on the mountain. And the tornado was absolutely devastating. But that's not what we're here to talk about. So 2023 overall was super intense for me, and this is just a few of the things that happened in 2023. But I'm really excited to be in a new year. It hasn't exactly been smooth sailing this year either, but I'm feeling really good about it, and I'm back, and I'm very back if you've noticed at all on my social media. I'm really excited to be showing my face again, and there's also energetically a lot of reasons why I haven't been sharing myself and my face and really just content in general, but I'm back and I'm here to stay and I have new platforms. So I wanted to talk to you guys. I've got notes here if you see me, because now I've got video, so it's a lot harder to, focus on two things at once. But let's talk about this year. So my goal for this year is I want to share a lot of really amazing content with you all, a wide variety of content, really interesting content. I want to talk to really inspiring individuals in several different ways, and I have a new platform, as I just mentioned. So I am now on Substack. Substack is very exciting to me. It's part of why I'm back with a vengeance. It's very refreshing. It is technically a newsletter platform, but it reads a little bit like a blog that gets sent to your inbox like a newsletter. And there's also some chat and almost Twitter-like aspects to it, but it is not owned by Meta, and it is a place that is designed for creatives and creative individuals. So it's super refreshing. Everybody there is really positive and supportive and really vibrant, and they're speaking on topics that they're super passionate about and in really beautiful ways, and it's long form content, which is so sorely missing from the internet space at this point in time. We've all been trained that we need those little dopamine hits of short form content, 15 seconds or less, reels all the time, TikTok, which terrifies me. TikTok is not my platform, that's for sure. And I love to write. If you know anything about me, I love to write and I love to read. And that's my thing. And I'm always being told that my blog posts are too long, and if I've maxed out my Instagram captions far too many times to count. So I'm really excited to be there and sharing my words and my thoughts and some learning ideas and topics like herbalism. I've just done a post on the feminine archetypes and talking about the stars and astrology and food and just my general musings, maybe a little bit on parenthood perhaps. So if you would like to join me there, I would love that. And this podcast is actually migrating over to Substack as well, which is very exciting. It will still be available on all streaming platforms, so don't worry, wherever you currently listen to it, you can still listen to it. But it is, all of my content is going to be sort of concentrated in one little hub, which is also really nice and helps my brain and helps my focus. And I'll still be on Instagram a little bit, but just so you know, that is where I'll be putting a lot of my effort to this year. I am really excited to say that I'm going to be going back to Canada. My husband is Canadian, so I'm going back to Canada with the baby and my husband this June, and we're going for almost 4 weeks, and I am getting to go to a couple of really cool herbal events while I'm there, and I'm going to be sharing that content with you, which is going to be very exciting, and I've never done something like that before with social media, so that will be really fun. I also wanted to talk about the upload schedule. So this is going to be a fortnightly release for Always for the New Age, and something that I wanted to mention is we're changing things up, and with Substack, I'm doing one free episode per month and one paid podcast episode a month. And if I can get more free content up, I absolutely will. It just depends on how full my plate is that week. So that's going to be our schedule, and it will be on Mondays mostly. That is my goal. Monday releases for the podcast. If you have any suggestions on anything you'd like to learn about or see this year, please just let me know. I would love to hear from you. You can send that on Instagram or on Substack or via email, however you want to go about it, but I would love your suggestions. I also wanted to mention one other thing. So I mentioned at the beginning, but Rad Herb Australia is a fantastic community herbalism initiative where the team, so beautiful Beck and Bridget and I, are working together to cultivate these zines each season. And so any herbalist can write in and contribute to the zine. So you can contribute recipes, poems, pictures from your garden if you really want to, and talking about what you're growing. You can talk about the medicinal properties of a herb. You can talk about the energetic properties of herb. Really, it just has to be plant focused. So if you are interested in joining that, jump over to the Rad Herb Australia Instagram page, and that is pretty much the only platform where you can see anything to do with the zine. It's very grassroots, and I love that about it. And it is print, which also is bringing it back. Long form content, beautiful content, hard copy content. It's very exciting. I'm loving the vibe of 2024 in that regard.
This episode was brought to you by Grown Botanicals. Grown Botanicals makes a range of naturopathically formulated herbal salves, oils, and teas, as well as the best-selling medicinal mushroom-infused cacao-based tonic blends. All products are handmade with organic ingredients on Wandjirabura country in Queensland, Australia. Enter Old Ways 10 at checkout for 10% off your first purchase. That's OLDWAYS10 with no spaces for 10% off your first order. Grown Botanicals. Grow with us.
So, all of this said and done, thank you for listening to my ramblings, and let's get into our mini herb profile on catnip. So catnip, Nepeta Cataria. I've seen it pronounced a couple different ways, Nepeta Cataria, but catnip basically. And it is the same plant that you use for your cats, but it's also incredible for humans of all ages. It's a fantastic family herb, and I'm going to share a few of the reasons why you might be using it in your home. First of all, this is a mint family plant, so it's extremely easy to grow. I would highly recommend this in your backyard. It is going on my list of herbs for beginners because it's so easy to grow. It's beautiful. It has a very strong smell, but I think it's just a great one to get in your garden because it's so multi-purpose and really functional for people of all ages. It has really interesting energetics to it, as do most mint family plants. So with this plant, you're looking at warming aromatic, which if you actually are able to smell it in person, you'll understand. I've heard it kind of likened to mugwort in some ways. It has a very pungent, is the only way I could probably explain it, pungent scent. And it is also cooling and drying. So warming, aromatic, and cooling at the same time. My understanding of how to work with a plant like this to harness those different energetics when you need them is a lot of people prepare these kinds of plants are cool or iced or in preparations that are not hot if you're wanting to harness the cooling aspect, and then preparing it hot, like in a hot infusion, if you're wanting to work with that warming aromatic aspect. The beautiful folks over at Commonwealth Herbs have a fantastic little profile on this plant also, and they have said that if you are a dry constitution, which I definitely would consider myself a dry constitution, then you should pair it with linden, and that will help to balance out that drying effect. I've seen this plant connected with the moon in astroherbalism. It does have that beautiful shimmery, almost pearly kind of tone to it, similar to what you'll find with some types of mugwort, if that makes sense. That iridescence, and it's quite soft. The leaves are kind of fluffy, and it's just very gentle. My personal experience with catnip is it has like a cheeky little child energy to it. It's fun, it's playful, and it's safe to use. In terms of lunar qualities with astroherbalism, lunar qualities, so the moon in general rules the fluids of the body, As we know, the moon is known to affect the tide and water, and so it affects the fluids and rules the fluids of the body, and also rules digestion and the gut. So that's very relevant for this herb, and now I'll explain why that is. So the herbal actions for catnip: it is a gentle nervine, and I would almost say, I don't know if anxiolytic is the right term, but it definitely is fantastic for use with anxiety. It is a sedative, not a hypnotic, and I'm going to do another episode on the difference between sedatives and hypnotics because I found that particularly interesting in my personal studies when I first learnt about the difference between them. So that's another episode coming, but it is a sedative herb. It is a carminative herb and an antispasmodic. So really good if you are prone to getting indigestion or stomach cramping when you are stressed or anxious. It is antibacterial and antiviral, and so really fantastic for the immune system, which I will get into also. And it is known to be immunomodulatory and also a diaphoretic, which helps with fevers. The things you would use catnip for: so it is fantastic for gas and tummy pains and colic. So this is where it comes in that it's fantastic for children also. And if I was using it for really little babies, I personally would probably drink the tea myself and pass it through breast milk. That's how I would use it with infants who have colic. Catnip is fantastic for digestion. So if you're the person who gets indigestion with stress, if you get heartburn in particular, if you find it that things are really upset and bloated and painful and crampy, and just if you actually literally tense up when you are stressed and anxious, catnip has a downward motion. So it is a calming downward herb, which they also talk about on Commonwealth Herbs. They're really fantastic with their descriptions in this way. But when you're feeling really heightened, up in the air, when you're feeling like you have butterflies that are fluttering in your stomach because you're so anxious, that's when catnip can be a really fantastic herbal ally to work with. And with the antiviral, antibacterial, it can be really great for use with colds, flus, and times when you have a fever. So definitely worth keeping in mind. And another reason why it's so good to grow as a beginner, because it's so useful for these everyday ailments. There are a lot of other ways that you can work with catnip also, but these are just some of the main ones. And a lot of the reasons why I decided to grow it in my garden. It's been really fun to see it grow through from a tiny little seedling and grow super fast and super enthusiastically, and now it's on its second round of flowering, and its flowers are absolutely beautiful. With these kinds of plants, if it's a flowering plant like this, the best time to harvest is when the energy is up in the top of the plant, in the aerial parts that you're harvesting. Definitely harvest it right now while the energy is all in the aerial parts and harness the potency of that medicine. So that was just a quick little profile on catnip. I hope that that interests you. And yes, you can still use it for your cats, but I think it's such a valuable part of the home herbal first aid, so to speak, the home apothecary. And I look forward to seeing you grow it in your own gardens. And if you do, tag me in pictures. I love to see people's gardens, and I love to see that you've got something from an episode here. So I look forward to hearing all about your garden adventures. And again, I'm so glad to be back, and thank you for your patience and for showing up here. I'm so grateful that you decided to stick with me in my weird hiatus that was semi-unannounced. But welcome back again. And here's to a fantastic season 3 of the Always for the New Age podcast.